Jerry Hammerlun. Jerry was a friend. Jerry was a great friend of mine. I got to know Jerry early on when I moved to Georgetown in 2006, when I wasn't involved in school world at all, and became a friend and a mentor to me. So Jerry holds a dear place in my heart as a friend.
Who is Jerry Hammerlun? I think the best word that describes Jerry Hammerlun would be an investor. And so most people would think an investor, you would think financially. Jerry Hammerlun was not a financial investor. Jerry Hammerlun was an investor in people.
Jerry Hammerlun was a man that I met in Georgetown, Texas, right when I moved here in July of 2014. He worked with Huckabee Architects, which at the time was doing some work in the district along with other architecture firms. But Jerry Hammerlun really introduced himself as a man of Georgetown, a leader in our community and someone who just cared about people.
I'm Greg Hammerlun. Jerry Hammerlun was my father.
And I'm Lindsay Hammerlun Kozak, and he was my dad.
My relationship with Jerry Hammerlun was probably different than what some may expect it to be, since he did work for Huckabee Architects. See, I did not deal directly with Jerry regarding school architecture matters because he was the CFO. Where I dealt with Jerry was Georgetown America, if you will. Jerry was someone who I loved to talk with about leadership and direction of the district, where we were going, what I was learning from other people across the state, what he was seeing. But in general, generally speaking, it was having breakfast with Jerry, having lunch with Jerry, enjoying a glass of wine at dinner with Jerry from time to time. He was a strategic thought partner, someone who I always felt like was asking me good questions that I had not really considered about myself as a leader, or really just about leadership in general around Georgetown, Texas.
So I consider Jerry family, which is unusual when you're business partners. I said one day to a friend of mine after Jerry had passed away that Jerry ran the finance side of our company. He ran all the business operations of the company. And I actually said to someone after he passed away, the day Jerry Hammerlun took over business operations at Huckabee, I never looked at our checkbook again. And I had a friend of mine tell me, if that's a true statement, you're a poor businessman. And my answer to that was, I'm not a poor businessman. I happen to be partnered with an honest businessman. And I think that's a very important thing for everybody, is always align with people of ethics and character. I was aligned with a man of the utmost ethics and character.
My relationship with Jerry was fun, I would say, overall. Jerry was full of life and energy, always. And it was magnetic. It was fun to be around. My favorite times walking into the monument, seeing him there eating the same breakfast over and over. I think they may have renamed one of the plates after him for a while. And so my relationship with him was just based on meeting him around town, being involved in his life. He involved in my life and our business as mentor role at some of those capacities, and enjoying just being around him. As we all know, he loved life and lived it to the fullest.
For me, I remember that my dad taught me so much, but one thing that sticks out is to always stay true to your values and what you believe in. And I remember when I was about to graduate from A&M and I was applying for my first teaching job, he had me sit down and write down everything I believed as a teacher and my why for why I wanted to be a teacher. And he told me to always do a self-check and to check back into that, just to stay true to that.
Something going back to when I was young, I remember he always was preaching that attitude and enthusiasm. There are no substitutes for a good attitude and to always be enthusiastic about what you're doing, no matter what it is.
I think to me what stood out that he would say that I can still remember the belief of was that good leadership matters and strong leadership matters, and anyone who aspires to be a leader can and should be a leader. And you have influence no matter where you are in whatever capacity of profession that you have, wherever you find yourself in any organization. Good leadership is essential to any and every organization, in your home, in your relationship with friends, and especially inside of an organization. It's important and it matters, and good leadership changes things. So to me, it was crucial to hear that as a young leader in town growing up, kind of growing through changes in leadership around town and seeing what was going on, and Jerry was very influential in making that impression on me.
The most important thing Jerry brought to our firm from a leadership standpoint were the concepts of collective wisdom. It's a hallmark of who we are today, but it's what Jerry brought to the table. And what Jerry would say is that we're always better as a team than we are individually. If someone is individually working on a challenge and you bring that challenge to a group of really smart people, and there's no limitations on what that group can share, it's not a judgmental place, it's a place to solve problems. If you can create that culture, you can become so much more powerful. So the idea of collective wisdom within the Huckabee organization was really born out of this idea from Jerry, that he would say we're so much better together than we are individually.
From a leadership standpoint that my dad taught, we were having lunch together in Fort Worth, and I had just made a change in my career. I had gone into a sales and a consulting role, and I remember he told me, he wrote on the back of the receipt from lunch, more. And he told me, it's very important. You're not just there to try and sell something, but you need to be more involved. You need to do more. You want to be the person that they pick up the phone and make a phone call, whether they're asking you a question about your products or your services or not. You want to be their go-to guy. You always want to do more.
He was always energetic and always upbeat. And he spoke to me as a leader with passion, someone who just had this quest to always get better. I felt like when I left a conversation with Jerry, he had poured something into me to make me better, or just asked me questions that made me reflect on who I was as a leader or the situation at hand. He always brought a new perspective. So he had this passion, this quest for being better, always thriving, always pushing forward, never looking back.
To me, I think the biggest thing, and I think the thing would be to develop and continue to help educators, employees of the school district, whatever the case may be, to help them grow, to help them develop, to go out and to continue to serve in the community, continue to serve within the school district. And in turn, that's only going to drive the success of the students in the school district.
And I hope that, the participants positively impact someone, a child, someone they work with, someone in the community, and that they develop into lifelong learners. I know Dad was, if you've been in his office or were around him, you know that he was constantly reading and growing and just looking to get better at what he did.
I think Jerry would be ecstatic to see the Hammerlun Center, to see where Georgetown ISD was. He would still challenge. He would not come in here, look around and say, you've arrived, because that's not who Jerry was. He was not a person who ever said, you've arrived. He was a person that would always say, you can always be better. So he would challenge. If he were here, he would be challenging each of you. He would be challenging the leadership to strive for more. Because I think that's just who he was as a person. It's how he was in business. I think it's how he was in his family. He was always going to strive to do more. But he did that by putting himself out in front. And I think that's something we can all learn from and hopefully grow from as leaders. Put yourself out there. Don't just criticize, but do.
If someone were to ask me what I felt like Jerry's hopes and dreams were for Georgetown, Texas and Georgetown ISD, I would say he would want us to be, I think, different. Meaning, I don't feel like he wanted us to be an also ran, like someone who just runs where everyone else is running. Jerry was not like everyone. He didn't rush with the crowd to the latest, greatest thing. So I would think he would want us to be unique to ourselves, to our own identity. I think Jerry really knew who he was. I think Jerry was proud of who he was, his family, his children, his wife, Vicki, and what they stood for. And he knew who he was, and he would want us to do the same. He would want us, I believe, to embrace our beliefs and what we found value in for Georgetown, Texas. He definitely thought this was a unique place. He saw untapped potential for our district, and I would say he would want us to be unique, true to ourselves, true to who we wanted to become, and always keep pressing on to be better, no matter where we were.
hopes and dreams that I think Jerry would have had for GISD and our community at large. He talked a lot about being excellent. He talked a lot about the passion of our community and being involved in each other's lives. He was a very relational leader. He was an inspirational leader. And so I think his character and the things that he stood for would come through his personality in terms of how he led. And what was important to him would be that everyone in GISD would embrace that life and embrace a life of action, getting out and just going for it and leading, failing forward. And I appreciated that about him.
I think he would be extremely prideful, very proud of the building that has his name on it. And being that it's going to be a leadership academy and develop educators and in turn develop students, public education was something he was all about. He believed that good communities have good schools and good schools make good communities.
I think that he would say the academy doesn't need his name on it. He was more of a behind the scenes kind of guy, but I think he would 100% stand behind its purpose, and he would be honored. And for us and our mom, it's a special way for his legacy to continue.